So we've got the Locksmith Live, a Cheers and Bits, saying, best argument I've heard for the other side is when considering two equally qualified individuals, pursuing the one who has overcome more disadvantage will yield more resilient candidate. That is a really great point. I like that. Now initially I'm thinking like, well, is it then fair to pivot to this person just because of some factor? But if you have equally qualified individuals, then yes, the other person is potentially, only potentially, because again, if you base it on the color of someone's skin, okay, whatever your skin color is, you can come from a poor background or a rich one, but obviously if you're going to roll the dice, we know where, you know, the chances of you coming from either one is based on that. But yeah, you know, because you could potentially actually give it to the person who didn't overcome this more disadvantage, right? But if you do, overcoming disadvantage is probably a strength of character as well. It'll probably be the tipping of the scale, if anything. I like that. No, I like that a lot. That makes total sense to me. Thank you for your cheers and bits. We got Wider Shins here at Cheers and Bits saying the idea behind hiring more minority people is to both help them get a leg up and to keep the company accountable. Make sure they aren't excluding hires based on minority biases. So like trying to pick out systemic biases and all of that stuff with statistics and numbers is really tricky stuff. I've watched tons of videos flipping numbers in all sorts of directions around workforce representation stuff, and the thing with numbers and charts and statistics is you can kind of yield them in so many different ways. Obviously you don't want any kind of bias, like an individual going, well, I'm not hiring that person because they're this color or that color, right? You don't want that. We totally got rid of that, but we've got to be careful not to create perceived problems where there aren't. Like giving people a leg up, to me, that attitude should be at the root level, like education and childcare, and from the beginning of a person's life, we were all born equal. At the beginning of our life, we were all equal, but then, depending on what womb you came out of, then all of a sudden the equality starts to disappear, and no child chooses any of that. So that's where I think like you should aim to solve the problems at the root, because if you go further down the line, there's so many more factors, and then it falls prey to being, used by the wrong people. Like, because this is one of the things I've said before. Like, I think reparations or something like that, conceptually, is an idea that I would be perfectly fine with happening. But I know there would be people out there that were born disadvantaged that wouldn't be a part of reparations, that it would then give them the fuel to think this is so unfair. Like, what about me? And so that's why I don't believe in tackling things that way. And I'm not saying that they're wrong or they're right to see it and think about it that way. I just understand what that could be like. We also got Dr. Meme here with a big message, cheers and bits, saying, in my opinion, that definitely works in an ideal world, but we have to overcome the disadvantages that hinders minorities first. Equality, equal opportunity probably works in a reliable community like Hermitcraft, but out in society, different cases, of course. Though I agree that it should definitely be an equal opportunity kind of selection if we are to overcome obstacles minorities first, then that require the help of those who aren't minorities as well. I'm not sure at what point in the conversation you waged in with that, but let's say we put a little bit of a wrap on this conversation. Based on all that I've heard, it's been really fascinating. For me, like, I think, like I say the root. I'm talking about like childbirth, and think from that point onwards. And I feel like educational systems can be improved. And you know what children are like if you've been around them a lot. They're full of innocence and like just this unbelievable natural good spirit. And I think at that level, that's where we should make the play field for people as equal as possible in their youth, in their upbringing. Dr. Meme here saying, it's fascinating to hear and read all the discourse among chat, and thanks for not being dismissive. Yeah, that's what we should be. We should be respectful to one another, listen to one another. Like, there's all this craziness going on in the world right now, and it's almost like everything's a dumpster fire. You can just go on to Twitter and see awful stuff. People being mean to each other. But what we need to do is listen to one another, communicate, try to understand, have a conversation. And, let's not make a conversation about, oh, I'm right. You've got to listen to other people as well.